So what do you need to get started with hand embroidery? Well, you don't need many things and you don't need to spend a fortune. So this will hopefully give you a little quick list of materials I recommend to getting started with hand embroidery. And the first thing and most important thing is the embroidery hoop. Now, if you've never seen one of these before, you may have seen them in craft shops and wonder what they do, but they basically come with two rings, usually wooden, and one smaller than the other. And the idea is you put your fabric over the top of the smaller hoop. So we're going to grab our fabric, which I'll also talk about in a minute. So you put it over the smaller one, then place the one with the screw, the larger one, over the top. Push that down and make sure your fabric is nice and secure. And then just tighten up the screw into place, just gently pulling out any creases, lumps and bumps in your fabric as you do so. Okay, so embroidery hoop is the first thing you want to invest in. This is just a 5-inch embroidery hoop available from most craft stores or online. And the next thing you're going to need is obviously the fabric. Now, this is Hessian fabric. I highly recommend this fabric. It's a little bit rougher than normal fabric, it's a little bit tougher, but it's got a lovely woven stitch, and it comes in various natural colours as well, which is really lovely to work with. Definitely my favourite. This one's slightly rougher, but you can see the woven texture of the fabric, which makes this really suitable for embroidery. But you pretty much use any fabric. I recommend cottons like poplin fabric, even organza fabrics. So like in these bags, you could even use that. So really experiment, but I definitely recommend Hessian fabric. It's just lovely to work with. And the next thing you're going to need is obviously some embroidery threads, and you've probably seen these before in most craft stores. And they come in an absolute array of colours. You could also use crochet thread if you wanted to as well, or very thin cotton thread. But I do recommend buying the proper embroidery threads. They're definitely the best to work with. So that's the next thing you'll need. And then you'll want to draw a pattern onto your fabric. Now, everyone can talk about these sort of fancy fabric pens and washable, soluble pens, but you know what? I actually found friction pens the best. You've probably seen these pens before. These are ones that rub out with a little rubber on the ends, and friction ball erasable pens by, who are they by? Pilot, so not sponsored. But these are great because the rubber not so good. You can rub out some mistakes, but what it is good is when you use this pen and when you've finished your work, you can just iron and heat the fabric rather than wash it, and these marks just magically disappear. So they're really, really good for embroidery and using on fabric, and they turn up really well. Clearly see the marks better than, say, a pencil or something. So if I get my little masking tape stencil here and draw my next project for the first tutorial, you can see the pen appears really nicely on here. And if I heat this, which I can't do at the moment because I don't have an iron, but trust me, if you heat this later, this will disappear. And you can kind of use, if you're using this nice tough fabric, you can almost use the friction rubber at the end to mark out any sort of small mistakes, so you can do that as well. The only thing negatives probably using these friction pens is if your work gets cold, these marks can reappear. So, but if you don't plan on putting it in the freezer, then this should be okay for most projects. So yeah, I recommend these friction erasable gel pens, really, really good. The next thing you're going to need is a needle, obviously. So a normal sewing needle is what I use, but you can also use the ones with a more blunter end, which can be useful as well. So just a normal sewing needle tends to work really well for me. And I also recommend, for working on some 3D flowers, is a tiny little bit of plastic tubing. So we'll definitely do a tutorial on this later in the series, but yeah, a little bit of plastic tubing like this. It just fits your needle nice and comfortably like this. So I'll explain more why you might need this later. It's completely optional. And also another good idea, another useful tool is one of these stencils with lots of circles on, because again, we can use this like we did for our masking tape circle. We can create some really nice flowers. I think maybe over here we can work some nice stenciled circles, and it makes it easier to just draw some circles to work out where your project's going to go. So I highly recommend one of these utensils as well, little stencils. And that's pretty much it. You're also going to need, obviously, a pair of scissors. So I recommend a nice pair of embroidery scissors. Embroidery scissors tend to be a little bit smaller, a little bit sharper. You've probably seen lots of those stalk-shaped ones, which are quite good. I got these ones from Clover, again, not sponsored. But it's little sharp scissors, and these are really, really good for embroidery as well. And that's pretty much all you're going to need to get started with embroidery. So join me in my next tutorial where we're going to be looking at making some little roses, some really easy roses. So let's begin, shall we? Let's start. So I hope you found that information useful. Hopefully it's given you a little head start with getting started with hand embroidery, or maybe even inspired you to pick it up again. But join me in my next tutorial where I'm going to be showing you very soon how to make these cute little roses, and they're a lot easier than they look. And they look really pretty. So I will see you soon for some more embroidery fun. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video and share it if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Bye.